You ignored my texts.
I was practicing.
That Beaumont dude weird as hell. He too pretty to act like that.
You really do live here. And you came back.
How the hell you always spot him so fast? Spot who?
You make me feel calm. I think I'm in trouble. Welcome home, noble hearts. Shall we?
Montcalir Academy looked like the type of place where diamonds went to shine. Massive stone buildings towered over perfectly trimmed lawns, while expensive black SUVs rolled through iron gates every morning. Boys in tailored white uniforms crossed campus pathways with coffee cups in hand, laughing too loudly, flexing daddy's money too casually, and pretending their futures weren't already planned out for them before they were even born. The academy sat far above the city on a hill surrounded by forests and private roads, isolated enough that the outside world almost felt fake. And at the center of all of it was Zion Carter, captain. A football spiraled through the air toward him the second he stepped onto the football field. Zion caught it one-handed without even looking. The team immediately lost their minds. Tall, broad-shouldered, and built like Montcalir Academy had handcrafted him in a lab specifically to destroy people's self-esteem, Zion grinned while spinning the football lazily. The late afternoon sun reflected against the gold embroidery stitched onto his varsity jacket. Captain. His dark sponge curls were slightly damp from his moist forehead, skin glowing with sweat while students packed the bleachers nearby, pretending they weren't there just to stare at him. And honestly, who could blame them? Zion Carter wasn't just popular. He was Montcalir Academy's golden boy, the scholarship student who climbed his way to the top and somehow made the rich kids love him while doing it. Teachers adored him because his grades stayed decent despite football taking up most of his life. The football team worshipped him because he never let anybody get bullied. Students loved him because he made people feel seen. He remembered names, birthdays, favorite snacks, tiny things people mentioned once and forgot about. And girls from St. Celeste Academy? Yeah, you already know they threw themselves at him. "Yo, Captain," one of the younger players called. "You coming to the mixer tonight?" Zion threw the ball back effortlessly. "Depends. On what?" "If I embarrass y'all during practice again." A chorus of offended yelling followed immediately. Zion laughed loudly while jogging backward across the field. "Coach," somebody yelled dramatically. "He bullying us again. Shut your soft ass up and run the drill." More laughter erupted. That was another thing about Zion. People felt lighter around him. Like he absorbed tension naturally. Like being near him automatically made the day better somehow. But popularity was easy when nobody knew the truth. Nobody knew Zion's phone bill was overdue. Nobody knew his mother worked double shifts. Nobody knew he sent money home almost every week. Nobody knew the expensive gift students constantly gave him eventually ended up sold online for grocery money. Nobody knew the captain of Montcalir Academy's elite football team sometimes stayed awake wondering whether his little sister had eaten dinner. Zion preferred it that way. Pity felt worse than hunger ever did. "Zion!" A familiar feminine voice cut through the noise. Selena Brooks walked across the edge of the field. Several football players straightened immediately. One even whispered, "Lord have mercy," under his breath. Zion snorted. Selena rolled her eyes while approaching him. "You ignored my texts again. I was practicing. You posted on your story 30 minutes ago." "Damn," Zion muttered. "You FBI now?" She smacked his chest lightly. "You're annoying, but you still like me though." Selena tried hiding her smile and failed miserably. She attended St. Celeste Academy, the elite all-girls sister school connected to Montclair. And according to literally everybody with functioning eyesight, she was one of the prettiest girls in both academies combined. Long curls, glossy lips, perfect skin, money dripping off her effortlessly. And unfortunately for Zion, dating her made his life easier. The football team stopped making little jokes, questioning whether he liked men. Girls left him alone. Teachers thought they looked adorable together. Everything stayed simple. Or at least, simpler. Selena wrapped her arms around his waist, while students nearby whistled dramatically. Zion laughed automatically, slipping right back into the version of himself everybody expected. Easygoing, confident, straight, normal. Then his eyes drifted beyond the field and landed on Ezra Beaumont. The boy sat beneath a large oak tree near the academic building with a book resting against his knee. Alone, as usual. Even from far away, Ezra somehow looked calm in a way nobody else at Montclair ever did. While everybody else chased attention, Ezra avoided it like a disease, which honestly only made people stare more. Yo, one of Zion's teammates muttered nearby. That Beaumont dude weird as hell. Another snorted. Nah, for real. Every time I see him, he either reading or looking depressed. He too pretty to act like that. No homo though. Facts. Zion's jaw tightened slightly. He didn't know why, because technically they weren't wrong. Ezra Beaumont was beautiful. Not flashy beautiful. Not loud. Not attention-seeking. Just pretty in a way that snuck up on people. Brown skin smooth as melted chocolate. Neat shoulder-length cornrows, usually left loose. Slim fingers constantly holding books. Sharp eyes hidden behind silver glasses. And lips Zion had definitely stared at longer than necessary before. Once? Okay, maybe multiple times. Didn't he reject some rich chick last semester? Somebody asked. Yeah, apparently he openly gay or some shit. Bold as hell to do that here. His family rich though, another boy replied. They even kicking out donation money to the school. The group laughed. Zion didn't, because despite the gossip, Ezra never bothered anybody. He mostly stayed in the library, attended classes, and disappeared back into his dorm before parties even started. Quiet, polite, reserved. And for some reason, Zion noticed him constantly, like all the damn time, for 3 years straight. Sometimes, he'd look up during lunch and catch Ezra staring for half a second before quickly looking away. Other times, he'd find him sitting alone during football games, pretending to read while secretly watching the field. It did something weird to Zion's chest every single time. The captain. Selena flicked his forehead. You listening to me? Ha. She narrowed her eyes suspiciously. I asked if you're still coming tonight. Oh, yeah, probably. Probably? Coach got us training early tomorrow. You always got practice. That's because I'm talented. Selena rolled her eyes again. You're so full of yourself, but you love me. The words came out automatically. Easy, practiced, safe. And for some reason, Zion suddenly felt tired saying them. By 9 that evening, most of Montclair Academy was drunk, loud, or making terrible decisions somewhere off campus. Ezra Beaumont sat in the library, exactly where everybody expected him to be. Rain tapped softly against the massive windows while warm yellow lights glowed across rows of bookshelves stretching endlessly around him. The library was Ezra's favorite place at Montclair. Nobody bothered him there. Nobody whispered. Nobody stared too hard. Nobody asked weird invasive questions about his sexuality while pretending they were just curious. Here, he could breathe. A thick political science textbook rested open, beside several pages of handwritten notes. Peaceful, comfortable, safe, until, damn, Ezra nearly jumped. He looked up sharply. Zion Carter stood at the edge of the table, wearing a black hoodie and gray sweatpants instead of his uniform. His curls looked slightly damp from the rain outside. "You scared the hell out of me," Ezra muttered. "My bad." Zion glanced around at the mountain of books covering the table. "Do you actually live here?" Ezra adjusted his glasses calmly. "Sometimes. That cannot be healthy. And football concussions are?" Zion blinked, then barked out a laugh loud enough to echo through the library. A nearby student hissed angrily for silence. Zion immediately lowered his voice. "My bad," he whispered dramatically. Ezra tried not to smile. Failed. And unfortunately, Zion noticed immediately. "Oh nah," he grinned while pulling out the chair across from him. "You funny. I'm literally not. You low-key hilarious, actually." Ezra shook his head softly while looking back down at his notes. "You skipping the mixer this year?" Zion asked. "I wasn't invited. That ain't stopped half the people there," Ezra hummed absent-mindedly. Zion leaned back in the chair, studying him quietly. Up close, Ezra looked even prettier than usual tonight. And that thought alone made Zion internally panic a little, because pretty wasn't the word he normally used for dudes. At least not out loud. "You always study this hard?" Zion asked. Ezra shrugged. "I like learning." "Nerd. You play a sport where grown men throw themselves at each other for entertainment." That sounded kind of fruity. Ezra choked on his own saliva while Zion nearly fell out his chair laughing. "Oh my God," Zion wheezed. "You're definitely funny." Ezra hid his face briefly. "This conversation is over. Now come back." "I refuse." "You started it." "You literally started talking to me first." "Fair point." Zion watched him for another second before speaking again. "You don't really talk to people much, huh?" Ezra paused slightly, then shrugged again. "I talk when necessary." That sounded lonely as hell. The words slipped out before Zion could stop them. Ezra went quiet. Not offended, just thoughtful. "I guess," he admitted softly. Something about the honesty in his voice hit Zion unexpectedly hard. Because despite all the noise surrounding him every day, Zion understood loneliness better than most people. "You got friends though, right?" Zion asked carefully. Ezra gave him a look over the top of his glasses. "At Montcalir Academy?" "Right. Yeah, fair enough." That earned another small laugh. And damn, Zion realized quickly that he liked making Ezra laugh. "Way too much." "You got friends?" Ezra asked suddenly. "Obviously." "You have people around you," Ezra corrected softly. "That's different." Silence settled between them. Rain continued tapping against the windows. Somewhere deeper in the library, pages turned quietly. Zion stared at Ezra for a long moment. Because that sentence landed way too close to home. "You always read people like that?" he asked eventually. Ezra looked slightly embarrassed. "Sorry, nah." Zion leaned forward slowly. "You're right." For the first time since sitting down, Ezra fully met his eyes. And suddenly, the entire damn library felt too quiet, too warm, too small. Zion swallowed hard, because nobody at Montclair looked at him like this. Not like a football captain. Not like some untouchable popular boy. Just a person. "You seem tired," Ezra said softly. Zion laughed weakly. "You got all that from me sitting here 5 minutes?" "You smile a lot," Ezra replied. "But it doesn't reach your eyes sometimes." That hit way harder than it should have. Zion looked away first. And somehow, that scared him more than anything else had all year. The rain never stopped all week. Cold gray clouds hung over Montclair Academy, while students rushed between buildings half awake and overdressed in expensive coats. Zion Carter hated mornings, especially Monday mornings after football conditioning. Again, Coach barked across the field. Several players groaned dramatically. Coach respectfully, one boy gasped while bent over. "I think I'm dying." "You ain't dead yet," Coach replied. "Run it again. See?" Another player wheezed. "That man hate black excellence." The team burst into exhausted laughter. Zion shook his head while stretching his shoulders. "You soft," he muttered. "Easy for you to say, Captain America." "Captain Save-A-Ho," another corrected. "Yo, shut the hell up." The boys continued arguing while lining up again. Normally, Zion loved practice. Football cleared his head, made everything simpler. Hit, run, win, repeat. But this morning, his mind kept drifting back to Ezra Beaumont. Specifically, the way Ezra looked at him Friday night. Like he actually saw through all the noise. That shouldn't have mattered. And yet, "You good?" Zion blinked. His teammate Marcus frowned beside him. "You've been distracted all morning." "I'm straight." Marcus snorted. "Nah, you something. Mind your business." The whistle blew before Marcus could answer. The players took off running again. Still, even while sprinting down the field, Zion caught himself thinking about silver glasses, soft eyes, and quiet laughter. And that was a damn problem. By lunchtime, Montcalir Academy had returned to its usual chaos. Students filled the cafeteria in loud clusters while phones buzzed with gossip, football highlights, and party invitations. Zion barely made it through the doors before somebody tossed him a bag of chips. "Captain!" Another student handed him a sports drink immediately after. "Yo, Zion, you coming to my birthday dinner Friday?" "Maybe. You said maybe last time too." "Then take the hint." The table exploded with laughter. Zion grinned while dropping into his usual seat beside Marcus and the rest of the football team. Then, automatically, his eyes searched the cafeteria and found Ezra instantly, near the windows, alone again, reading while eating fries slowly with one hand. "How the hell you always spot him so fast?" Zion nearly choked. Marcus smirked knowingly next to him. "Spot who?" "That library boyfriend you keep staring at." Several players immediately turned toward Zion. "Y'all annoying as hell," Zion interrupted quickly. Marcus laughed harder. "I'm just saying, every lunch period yo eyes magically teleport over there. I literally looked over there one time. You looked over there right now. Damn, maybe I'm curious. About another man?" Marcus grinned. Zion threw a fry at him. "Eat shit." The table erupted again. Thankfully, the conversation shifted after that. But Zion still felt weirdly hot afterward, because the jokes shouldn't bother him this much. Right. His phone buzzed. Zion stared at the "miss you" text from Selena briefly before replying "miss you too" automatically. Another lie that came way too easily lately. That evening, Zion found himself outside the library again, which was crazy because he never voluntarily came here. Ever. The library smelled like old paper and coffee, warm lights glowing softly against dark wooden shelves, while rain tapped against the windows again. And somehow, Ezra was exactly where Zion expected him to be. Curled into a chair near the back corner, with headphones resting around his neck and books spread across the table. Zion smiled before he could stop himself. "You really do live here." Ezra looked up slowly and smiled. Actually smiled. Not polite, not small, real, and damn, that almost took Zion clean out. "You came back," Ezra said. The words sounded soft, dangerously soft. Zion pulled out the chair across from him casually. "You say that like you surprised." "I am." "Damn." Ezra snorted quietly. "What are you studying?" Zion asked. Ezra turned one of the books toward him. The Politics of International Trade Relations. Zion stared at the pages. English? Ezra laughed. A real laugh this time. Warm. Pretty. I hate you, Zion muttered. You asked. Nah, because why every sentence got 12 business days worth of words? Ezra shook his head, smiling. You're ridiculous. And you scary smart. That compliment seemed to catch Ezra off guard slightly. You think so? Obviously. Ezra looked down at the table for a second, like he didn't quite know what to do with the praise. That surprised Zion. You don't hear that a lot? Not really. How? Most people here don't care about intelligence unless it benefits them. Damn, that sounded sad as hell. Zion leaned back slowly. That's stupid. Ezra looked at him carefully. You're different from what I expected. That made Zion raise an eyebrow. What you expect? A loud, arrogant athlete. Ouch. You are loud, fair, and slightly arrogant. All right, relax. Ezra smiled again. There it is, Zion pointed immediately. What? That smile. Ezra rolled his eyes. You're very observant for somebody who barely studies. I study. Football doesn't count. It absolutely counts. Ezra hummed skeptically. Zion watched him flip through pages quietly for a minute before speaking again. So why Montclair? Ezra paused. My parents attended here. Legacy kid. Unfortunately. You hate it that much? Ezra thought about the question carefully. I like learning here, he admitted. I just don't particularly like the people. That bad? You'd be surprised how exhausting it gets being the openly gay student everybody whispers about for 3 whole years. Silence settled briefly. Zion swallowed hard, because hearing Ezra say it out loud made something twist painfully in his chest. You care what they think? He asked quietly. Ezra shrugged lightly. Not usually, but... Another pause. Sometimes I get tired of pretending it doesn't hurt. Damn, that honesty hit hard. Especially because Ezra didn't sound dramatic saying it. Just tired. Like somebody carrying something heavy for too long. Zion looked down at the table. You know, he said slowly, people talk about me too. Ezra blinked. You? Everybody think because I'm smiling all the time my life perfect. Ezra stayed quiet, listening carefully. They think I'm just naturally good at everything. Zion laughed weakly. Like football magically pays bills already. Ezra frowned slightly. Bills. That word felt out of place in Montcalir Academy. Most students here had never worried about bills a day in their lives. Zion realized his mistake immediately. But Ezra didn't press. Instead, he asked softly, You feel pressured? Zion stared at him, then laughed quietly. All the damn time. Something shifted after that. Subtle, but noticeable. The conversation became easier, softer. Like both of them accidentally lowered walls they normally kept locked tight. By the time they realized it, nearly 2 hours had passed. You missed dinner, Ezra noted suddenly. So did you. Zion grinned. You hungry? Ezra hesitated. A little. Come on. Where to? The kitchen. Ezra blinked. The cafeteria's closed. Exactly. A slow, suspicious look crossed Ezra's face. You're about to commit a crime, aren't you? Zion placed a hand dramatically against his chest. First of all, rude. That's not a no. Second of all, Zion continued proudly, I know people. 10 minutes later, they were sneaking through the academy kitchens, while one of Zion's friends distracted the night staff near the front hallway. Ezra stared at him in disbelief. This is insane. This, Zion corrected while opening a refrigerator, is survival. You're stealing snacks. We are stealing snacks. I'm not participating in this. You already an accomplice. Ezra laughed quietly while Zion handed him a bottled juice and a chocolate bar. For a moment, everything felt weirdly normal. Easy, warm. Zion moved around the kitchen, confidently gathering snacks, while Ezra sat on the counter watching him. "You do this often?" Ezra asked. "Sometimes. You realize rich people can just order food, right?" "Yeah, well," Zion muttered while avoiding eye contact. "Not everybody here got money like that." The words slipped out naturally, but the second silence followed. Zion realized what he'd admitted. His stomach tightened immediately, but Ezra just looked at him calmly. No judgment, no pity, just understanding. And somehow that felt even scarier. "You send money home, don't you?" Ezra asked softly. Zion froze. "How you know that?" "You sell gifts people give you." Zion stared at him. "You noticed that?" Ezra looked almost confused. "Of course I did. They gift you publicly, but you've never worn whatever you've been gifted. Nobody noticed stuff like that. Nobody. Not usually." Zion suddenly felt exposed in a way he wasn't used to. Like Ezra could somehow see every ugly hidden piece of him, no matter how hard he smiled over it. "You think less of me now?" he asked quietly. Ezra's expression changed instantly. Zion, the way he said his name, soft, certain, careful. "I could never think less of you for surviving." That sentence hit Zion so hard he had to look away, because nobody had ever said something like that to him before. Not once. The kitchen suddenly felt too quiet, too close. "You take care of everybody else," he said softly. "Who takes care of you?" Zion's chest tightened painfully. And before he could think better of it, he answered honestly. "Nobody." Something changed after the kitchen night. Not suddenly, not loudly, just quietly. Like both of them started existing in each other's orbit without meaning to. Or maybe meaning to a little too much. By the end of the week, it became normal for Zion to show up at the library after practice. At first, Ezra assumed it was temporary. A joke. Something the football captain would eventually get bored of. But then Zion kept coming back. Every day. Sometimes sweaty from practice with his varsity jacket hanging off one shoulder. Sometimes exhausted and carrying enough snacks to feed half the dormitory. Sometimes just quiet. Which honestly surprised Ezra the most. Because the version of Zion everybody else got was loud and bright and impossible to ignore. But here, with Ezra, he softened. And Ezra started looking forward to it way more than he should have. "You know," Zion said one evening while sprawled dramatically across the couch next to Ezra, "you real judgmental for somebody built like a cinnamon stick." Ezra didn't even look up from his book. "You failed another quiz, didn't you?" "It was one question. You got a 48. That sounds very close-minded of you." Ezra snorted. Zion grinned instantly. "There it is." "What?" "That little laugh. You're obsessed with my reactions." "Nah," Zion replied casually. "You're just cute when you forget to act emotionally unavailable." Ezra's fingers froze above the page. Silence. Zion blinked too. Because damn, that came out way too naturally. Ezra looked at him slowly over the top of his glasses. "Cute?" Zion immediately leaned back. Don't make it weird. You called me cute. And now you ruining the moment." Ezra tried hiding his smile. Failed miserably. Zion pointed immediately. "See? Cute. You're insufferable. But lovable though." That stupid sentence again. Only this time, it sounded different. Softer. More dangerous. Ezra looked back down at his book before Zion noticed the heat rising in his face. Unfortunately for him, Zion noticed anyway, and smiled to himself quietly. Friday night brought another Montcalir all-black mixer. Music blasted across campus while students flooded the main courtyard, dressed in expensive clothes and bad decisions. Zion sat on the dorm rooftop instead, which was exactly how Ezra found him. "You're missing your own party," Ezra said while climbing onto the roof carefully. Zion looked up from where he sat. "Nah, team throwing the party. I'm just the mascot." Ezra sat beside him slowly. Below them, the academy glowed beneath strings of lights while music echoed through the night air. "You okay?" Ezra asked. Zion shrugged. "Just tired." Ezra studied him quietly. "You've been tired a lot lately." "That sounds like an accusation." "It's an observation. You really enjoy analyzing people, huh?" "I study political science. Human behavior is literally part of my coursework." "Damn," Zion muttered. "So you psychoanalyzing me for free?" "You couldn't afford my rates." That made Zion laugh loudly. And God, Ezra loved that sound, which was dangerous. Very dangerous. The wind blew softly through the rooftop while distant music pulsed below them. For a while, neither spoke. Then Zion suddenly asked, "You ever been in love?" Ezra blinked. The question caught him off guard. "No." "Seriously?" Ezra shrugged. "I've liked people before, but they never liked me back." Zion frowned slightly. "That's hard to believe." "It's really not." "Nah," Zion said quietly. "You smart and pretty." Ezra turned sharply. "What?" "Damn." Zion froze. Because there it was again. Pretty. That damn word. And judging by the way Ezra stared at him right now, he noticed too. The air shifted suddenly. Thicker. Warmer. Zion swallowed hard. "I just mean..." "No." Ezra interrupted softly. His voice sounded nervous now. "Say it again." Zion's heart started beating harder instantly. "What?" "What you just said." The rooftop suddenly felt too small. Too quiet. Zion stared at Ezra beneath the moonlight and realized something terrifying. He wanted to kiss him. Badly. Ezra's eyes dropped briefly toward Zion's mouth before flicking back up again. And that tiny movement? Yeah, that almost took Zion clean out. "You pretty," Zion admitted finally. Ezra inhaled sharply. Silence. Nobody moved. The music below them faded into background noise while tension wrapped tightly between them. Then Ezra laughed softly, nervously. "You realize this conversation would terrify your football team, right?" Zion laughed weakly too. "Yeah, but you still said it." "Yeah." Ezra looked away first. And somehow that gave Zion enough courage to ask, "You scared?" Ezra thought about it honestly. "Yes." "Me too." That confession hung between them quietly. Raw. Real. Ezra looked back at him slowly. "Then why does this still feel nice?" Zion's chest tightened painfully. Because he didn't know. Or maybe he did. Maybe he'd known for a while now. Ever since the library. The kitchen. The late-night conversations. The way Ezra looked at him like he mattered outside football and popularity and pretending. "You make me feel calm," Zion admitted softly. Ezra's expression broke slightly at that. Like nobody had ever told him something so sincere before. Then slowly, carefully, Zion reached for Ezra's hand. And Ezra let him. Their fingers intertwined quietly beneath the moonlight. Warm, soft, real, no audience, no performance, just them. Zion stared at their hands for several seconds before whispering, "Damn." Ezra smiled nervously. "What?" "I think I'm in trouble." That made Ezra laugh again. Soft and beautiful and completely unfair to Zion's self-control. "You dramatic," Ezra murmured. "Nah," Zion replied honestly while staring at him. "I'm serious." And for the first time in a very long time, Zion Carter stopped pretending.
Don't forget to like, comment, turn on notifications so you're informed when a new crown drops, and please subscribe! Thank you.